just like our case with our chief, should have been an internal affairs investigation. And if he was found guilty internally, she should have been charged. And these officers were charged, but then they were fired because they didn't go through the right process. And that's why they got their jobs back, because there's a legal process that you have to go through. And the mayor of Atlanta did not go through that process. And that's what happened. That's why the fallout was there also with the police, because again, when you have policies and procedures that police officers go by, that's their Bible. They come to work every day, they risk their lives, putting on that badge and gun every day, going out serving and protecting. And you tell them these are your rules and your regulations, this is what we go by. But then you violate that and you don't go by that, it causes problems.
We're going to have to unpack a lot of misinformation between this question and the previous question. I don't know that it was an internal investigation, but there was definitely an independent investigation into the situation with buyers. And so it was definitely investigated by a neutral outside third party, and the conclusions were unmistakable. And so it was really never a question of was Chief Byers guilty of the different things, but simply what was the thing that made the most sense in the best interests of the city and you, the taxpayers. 5 of us decided that based on the information that we had and the advice of our attorneys, that it would not make sense to fire him, but rather to do the settlement. And look, I mean, this is something that, comes up fairly regularly. There have been situations with the Johns Creek Police Department where police officers maybe were engaged in a situation and it was found that there would be a settlement. And I would never, for political purposes, stand in front of you and try to somehow say that someone else was responsible beyond the actions of the people involved. But I'll just say this, it is something that we definitely want to make sure that we have transparency, that we do have accountability. I take very seriously my role in being your representative in government to make sure that we are looking out for your best interests and that we're a good steward of the taxpayers' money. Anyway, I'm sorry if I've taken up the time on this question. Thank you.
Okay, John. In the August 16th City Council work session, the Council failed to reach a consensus and rejected the latest funding offer from the federal government for HUD grant money. John Bradbury was at the meeting and voted against accepting the money. Brian Weaver had resigned from the Council to run for mayor prior to the meeting. John, can you briefly tell us why you voted against accepting the money? And Brian, had you been in this meeting, how would you have voted on the issue?
So I think what you're talking about is the Community Development Block Grant money. That is the money that was offered from HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. And so this is, I think it was somewhere around $250,000. To me, we fought so hard in Johns Creek to become independent from Fulton County so that we could have greater autonomy in different things like our zoning, our code enforcement. We got our own police and fire department. We fought so hard for that independence. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would trade that for then getting the strings attached that are many from the federal government as part of accepting that money. And so, it may sound like, well, gee, you're going to get this extra money, and yeah, it's very tempting. But, we have, at different times, have said that we are not going to take different grants because there are just too many strings attached. They're going to have way too many unknown ramifications and requests made of us as part of taking that. And so, for example, a great example is this thing down here at State Bridge and 141. Yeah, GDOT, if we see control of that project and do this experimental thing, doing the Michigan through you, Yeah, they will probably give us the money, but we're also going to lose control as a community over that process and over what the end result is going to be. And so I think that we have to be vigilant in making sure that we are going to, look out for this community first and foremost. I take seriously being a good steward of the taxpayer money. It's not easy to say no to that, but there are times when I think the price is too high. And thank you.
In the August 16th City Council work session, the Council failed to reach a consensus and rejected the latest funding offer from the federal government for HUD grant money. John Bradbury was at the meeting and voted against. Brian, you had resigned from the Council to run for mayor. Had you been in the meeting, how would you have voted on this issue?
Yeah, we was talking about affordable housing earlier. I would look at this grant in ways that we could be creative here in the city for affordable housing. If we can look at it to use it for our first responders, creating another avenue of having affordable housing for them, for our police officers, our firefighters, and maybe even our school teachers. That's the way I would look at it, as a positive way to try to be more creative to get the affordable housing here in Johns Creek for the people who cannot afford to live in Johns Creek. But we want them here because they are our first responders, our teachers. This will be an opportunity for Johns Creek. And I would have voted yes to explore that opportunity, to make sure we let our city staff look at it, let our legal staff look at it, to see if we could be creative enough to create affordable housing for our first responders and our school teachers and other people who are identified, who are city employees who cannot afford to live in Johns Creek. I think this would be an excellent opportunity for us to explore those options. Thank you.
Okay, the next one. While it's good and we should build parks for children to play, it would be nice to have a place for adults to gather who are too old for playgrounds. How would you accomplish this?
Well, I think this is an excellent opportunity. I had citizens, senior citizens, ask for, I guess, a seat at the table for the town center, and it wasn't Tom. So other senior citizens say, hey, how is this town center involving our senior citizens? I think we need to look at that. I think that needs to be a part of that right now. The senior citizens are pretty much out at Park Place in Newtown. There's nothing on this side of town for them. I don't know how robust the program is at Newtown Park, but I know a lot of senior citizens here in Johns Creek participate in the senior citizen program in Alpharetta because it is more inclusive, more active than here in Johns Creek. Now, I think Johns Creek is doing a better job. We're trying to get better, but I think this is an opportunity for us to get our senior citizens and make them feel welcome by trying to have them have a park in the town center. Maybe have an opportunity there for some type of place in the Legacy Arts Center or somewhere else that we can make sure that they feel inclusive instead of them having to drive all the way to Newtown Park. Because right now, some of the activities they have, they're utilizing the amphitheater, they're utilizing the garden, doing yoga and all kinds of activities outside. I think we should be able to find a place for them here, either in the town center or either in Collie Creek Park off Bell Road, because that's going to be a large park too. And there should be enough room for us to include our seniors, because we can't forget them. Believe it or not, we all going to be seniors if we not already are. So I think we have to make sure that we are taken care of.
I think we definitely want to make sure that Johns Creek provides services and opportunities for enrichment and extracurricular activities for our seniors. Our programming budget as a city is only $176,000 a year. That may be what we have been going on for many years, but I think that the city has grown. I think that, obviously it's important that we remain a good steward of the taxpayer money and keep taxes low, but at some point we've got to make sure that we're not denying the residents of Johns Creek some pretty fundamental things I think that they would expect from a city government. So I do think that there is a need to probably expand and go beyond what we are currently doing at Park Place for our seniors. I would have to look at, where would maybe be the best opportunity for another location, but that is something that I would probably look to the Recreation Parks Advisory Committee to give advice on. But surely another part that's going to equal out the city. And then, of course, the town center. That's probably our best opportunity to make something that all of us would enjoy. I look forward to maybe one day when we have the town center and it's going to become a reality. It's going to be unique, it's going to be vibrant to scale, it's going to be within the character of Johns Creek. It's going to be a place that maybe all of us could have a great meal, we could maybe see a show or see some kind of other exciting event. And that's going to be something that I think is really going to draw the community together, build that greater sense of place and identity, but it's something that we could all have fun, and maybe it's not just for the adults, but maybe while we are doing the eating, drinking, and partying, maybe the children can also be on the town green and they're having fun in a safe place in the town center as well. Thank you.
Okay, John, you've somewhat addressed this, but there's two parts. So the first question is, do you take money from developers? And the second one is, how do you avoid any conflicts of interest?
So I do not take money from developers. I did, during this campaign, get an online contribution from someone that I did not know before, and after doing a little research, it winds up that he is a developer, and it was a little bit of an awkward conversation. I said, nothing personal, but I have a policy, and it was a substantial donation, so it made it a little bit more difficult. How serious am I about this policy? But no, I went to him and said, look, unfortunately, this is going to have to go back to you. I do think that it's important that you are always able to have as high a degree of trust in your elected officials. I know that, I guess for lack of a better term, a politician, I know that we're maybe just one step ahead of a convicted felon. But I do think that as a future leader of this community, that probably the number one asset that I have is your trust. Because when there are issues that are difficult, or if there are things that we want to accomplish that are ambitious, I'm going to have to rely on that trust and your goodwill and confidence in me, that hopefully we can lead and move somewhere forward together. And so that's the reason for my view on that. And I just, as a rule, do not believe in taking money from those that I have or might have some role in regulating.
Okay, Brian. So do you take money from developers? And secondly, how do you avoid any conflicts of interest?
Well, most of the time, the people that donate to your campaign, and so that's how I avoid conflicts, because I know what type of business they're in. All of my campaign's contributions have been recorded, so it's not been anything illegal. So if you put yourselves in a compromising position, I think you always should use judgment to make sure that you're not being compromised, or your position, or you are not being compromised. Trust is the most important factor we have as elected officials. I mean, I took an oath as a police officer back in 1982, 37 years ago. And I still swear on that same oath to serve and protect. That's part of me. That's my fabric. Same thing with being on city council. I would always make sure that I'm doing the right thing. That's why I stepped down from council and say this city owes $325,000, because it was the right thing to do. I didn't have to step down, but I stepped down. That was the right thing to do, to make sure my position as city council was on the ballot with the mayor. I stepped down. I didn't have to step down, but that was a prudent thing to do, and I did it. Because I'm always going to value the taxpayers' money. I didn't think it was fair for me to stay on and wait till January where there will have to be a special election and cost the city $325,000. Just like I didn't think it was fair to give $325,000 away to the police chief. I didn't think that was right. That's taxpayers' money. You know, those things you'll never have to worry about with me, because if there's a policy in place, if there's a law in place, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow the law, because I was in law enforcement, serve and protect. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to make sure we're doing what's best for the community. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, this is going to be the last question, and then we'll have 5 minutes for each of you to just do a final wrap-up. So the last question, what are your thoughts about the use of deadly force by police officers? When a suspect suddenly points a gun at a police officer, do you believe the officer is justified in using deadly force?
Absolutely. Unquestioned. No question in my mind. Deadly force is not something that we take lightly, but when you put in that position, you don't have a choice. That's where police officers are trained. Unfortunately, something bad happens. Something bad happens when you pull that trigger. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes it's, I hate to say this, it's deserving to that individual, especially if they're out committing crimes and police officers trying to stop the threat. We use deadly force. That's the way we're trained. That's part of the job. And that's why I tell you again, 37 years in law enforcement, every day I put on that uniform to serve and protect, out here on this street, being able to, ready to make that decision. Life or death situations, serving, protecting, making sure I'm doing the right thing, making sure I'm following policy, making sure I'm following state law, making sure Johns Creek is doing what they're supposed to do as second in command of the police department by getting our officers trained, by hiring the best police officers, by making sure they understand what their role is, what their job is, what the law says, what the training is, and making sure that they're doing everything they can to protect this community and represent this community so we can all be proud of our police department. And we are. And we are. Ever since its inception in 2008, Johns Creek Police have always gotten awards, always been on the right side. So thank you.
I really don't want to be in the business of correcting the record, but I will continue to do so, and I would hope that if you ever caught me in something that was not above board, that I would welcome you to call hold myself accountable. The resignation by my opponent did not happen simply because it was voluntary. It was the law. The law required the resignation. And to tell you good people anything different is not fair to any of us. The issue that was asked in the question before was about conflicts of interest. I mean, why not address the issue that was brought up earlier? I mean, look, if you know who the contributors are, and I can assure you that if you get more than about $100, you're pretty curious as to who this person is. So if you're getting money from a developer, 2 years ago in a debate was asked this same question and said, oh, I've got no conflicts. It came from a developer, $1,500. And then you get on council and you're not going to recuse yourself when it's before the council in executive session 4, 5, or 6 times. Look, look, it's not illegal necessarily, but the question wasn't about legal. It was about what's ethical. And so, the law cannot be the standard. What is ethical and right and forthright by you is. Regarding deadly force, I'll just say that I will never forget where I was when I got the call and had the conversation about what happened to Miss Syed. I know that that was very difficult for those officers. Miss Syed lost her life. That was after they had tried several other means to stop her. Our police are well trained. They don't take that lightly. But I do support their need to make that judgment, because I don't think any of us can really make that judgment for them. It's got to be that officer in that moment, at that time, in that situation.
Okay, thank you both very much. That was the set of questions from all the emails and cards. Ryan, if you'd like to do a 5-minute wrap-up.
"40 years as a public servant, 37 years in law enforcement. That's what I offer you, to continue to be a public servant. I'm not a politician, I'll admit, so if I don't sound like one, I apologize. But I'm the guy that gets the job done. I've done it all my career. I've done it on the police department, shown good leadership, not only with Fulton County before I retired, but also with Johns Creek as second in command of the police department. Making those decisions that matter to save lives, to protect lives. Making a decision that we all value. That is safety and security for our city, quality of life issues, and because without safety and security, we won't prosper. There will be no economic development. Look at the areas where you have high crime. The city's not prospering. The neighborhoods are not prospering. You know, there is no economic development because of the crime rate. So what I offer you, public service, making sure Johns Creek is a desirable place and a safe place for all families. I've been there before the city got started. I helped the city get started. And now I'd like to take us to the next level, to do what all of you want done. You're tired of going to Avalon, Peachtree Corners, Swanee, to spend your money, to have a nice day with your family. We could do that right here in Johns Creek. And I'm the guy to get the job done. I'm the guy to make sure it gets done. It's time out for kicking the can down the road. I've heard that several times. That means putting off the decision. It's time to act now. Look around us, what's going on around us. We don't want to be them, we want to be Johns Creek. And we can do something special here in Johns Creek. We can be unique. We can have something that we all are proud of. And we can have something that others want to come to see. Just like we go to Avalon, or we go to Peachtree Corners, or we go to Swanee. We can have something special right here in Johns Creek. And that's what I bring you. Leadership, good decision making, holding people accountable in our city government, making sure we're doing what we're supposed to do as elected officials, making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a mayor, to make you proud of this city, to give you something that you've never had before. That's a place where you can go and enjoy a concert. You can go and watch a play at the Legacy Arts Center. Or you can just go and sit out by the lake behind City Hall and enjoy a nice concert. Or you can just walk around, because the walkability would be there. Down in Collie Creek Park, it's huge. It's going to be a regional park. We're redoing the bridge that connects us to Duluth. Imagine walking around in the park here in Johns Creek, and then you're walking across the bridge to another city. That's beautiful. That's a great thought. That's the American way. That's what we all want to be proud of. Elect me as your next mayor. I will make sure I take care of safety and security for our city, quality of life, and making sure we get the town center for the economic development. I will make sure those things happen. And at the same time, making sure our city is safe and for all families, and something that we can all be proud of. Because we deserve it. We deserve it. Johns Creek is a city, almost 90,000 people in the high 80s. We should have a lot more. We have a lot of resources. There are a lot of great people here in Johns Creek, and I met some of them on the campaign trail, and they're ready and willing to help. We just got to let them know where. Where can they help? What can they do to move this city forward? And I'm your mayor to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. John, 5 minutes.
After this will probably be the first time that I remember that I'm not supposed to go back there. Facts, as they say, are stubborn things. I'm always going to do my absolute best to shoot straight with you so that we can have a real conversation. This is not something that I'm seeking to be mayor so that I can be over. I'm seeking the job of mayor so that I can lead and be with you in advancing our community. This election is very important. You've got people that are running that are individuals like me that are from Johns Creek for a long time, that they've been hoping to realize the promise of the city of Johns Creek, and they're running for that reason. There are people that are running because they want a partisan political slate to be elected and be a part of radically changing Johns Creek into something that I don't think any of us moved here for. And so, speaking just for me, I want to see the best days of Johns Creek ahead. And I know that we can get there, and we're going to do it together. We're going to do it because this is our home. This is our community. We want to make it the best that it can be. But we can do it in such a way, we can add the vibrancy. We can make it dynamic. We can make it a better community without going to the extreme to make it a big city. And so if you want it to be a big city, I'm probably not your guy. If you take me at my word that I want to lead us to be a phenomenal community, and make no mistake, we have great communities inside our community, Midlock Bridge being one of them. But right now, a lot of people would say that we are a collection of nice neighborhoods. I would like to see us come together physically, socially, economically, capitalize on the human talent that we have in spades here in Johns Creek. We have an abundance. And then finally, a town center, unique, vibrant, to scale within the character of our community so that it doesn't get so out of control that it overwhelms the rest of our community and causes or creates new problems or makes existing problems worse. And so I think that Johns Creek future is very bright. I think that we have a lot to be proud of. We are a prosperous city. We are a beautifully diverse city. You know, something that's not talked about, we are actually number 8 right now in health as measured by the CDC for all the cities measured by the CDC across the country. I would like to see us go to number 1 through the effort that I helped get off the ground, the I Heart Johns Creek initiative. But there are things that we can do to become the best community. I am in this for that reason. I would appreciate your support. If you like what you heard tonight, I would appreciate your help. if you have any questions, I'll stay behind. I'm always willing to talk and answer any questions, and if I don't have the answers tonight,